Hey everybody, welcome out to the show, Board Game Reviews. This is the EYAK episode number 7, and at this rate I'm going to have to grow a third arm just to make sure I can count up to high enough videos. Maybe a fourth or fifth arm. Oh boy, that's going to get really bizarre and strange. But anyways, this is the EYAK. This is a video series where I get to interact with you and you get to interact with me and have some influence over the content that comes out on the channel. Also, it gives me a chance to talk about some games I've been playing, not quite reviews, or maybe some possible reviews coming up on the channel. And stick around all the way to the end of the video where you get a chance to be part of a poll where you can decide the next content coming out for the video channel itself. So, before we go anywhere, I just want to cover a couple of fun games I've been enjoying lately with my family. We all know that there's a lot of social distancing going on lately. So the amount of games we get to play is a little bit different. I know a lot of people have been using Tabletopia, other digital formats for their gaming. I still enjoy the good old-fashioned board game with the cardboard components because I just don't want to look at a computer screen all day. So for me, it's actually more fun enjoying the cardboard counterparts. So there's been a couple ways I've been enjoying some of the board games I have. A few things I've been doing has been using Skype and by using some of my video cameras and overhead feed to enjoy some games that don't require a lot of component interaction or different ways for me to actually have my friends see through the Skype call and be able to tell you which games they want or which interaction or moves they want to take on the turns. It actually works out pretty darn decently. It actually, with some games, actually work out extremely well. Basically, any game that doesn't have any hidden information can actually work really fantastically. And co-op games can actually work that way really well. But I've also been playing lots of games with my family. Now, the interesting thing about playing games with my family is my family enjoys lighter games, and my oldest son actually enjoys abstracts a lot. I would say that his favorite genre of games would be, if you just talk about genre of games, his favorite genre of games would be abstracts. If I mentioned any of the multiple abstracts I own, if I mentioned any of them, he'd be more than happy to play any one of them at any single time. So having said that, a lot of the games we're going to talk about today are a little bit on more of the abstract side. They're abstracts, and there's also going to be a couple dexterity games because of the kind of categories that he enjoys the most. But that's enough of the wah. Let's go ahead and cover the first game. That's going to be Mod X. Now, Mod X, if you're not familiar with it, it's truly an abstract game from Cryptozoic Entertainment. And this game is a game that plays up to 4 players. And the idea of the game is players are trying to get 5 in a row, or they're trying to get a diagonal pattern, or they're trying to get a cross pattern or a plus pattern. The idea of the game is you're trying to get enough of these areas on the board in control under your color. And the cool thing about this game is as you're making these patterns, you can actually steal the squares away from other players. Overall, on the surface, it's a pretty darn simple game. I mean, mechanically on your turn, if you're the red player, you can simply place this here. Once you get 5 in a row, and yes, you can use the wild cards to even help you get 5 in a row, you're simply going to put a simple square out there to signify that you capture the square. And based on the amount of players you're playing the game with, you're going to have the game come to an end when a couple different things happens. When nobody can make another move, the game's going to come to an end. When a certain player has placed a certain amount of these squares out on the board, the game's going to come to an end. Or there's a couple different things going to end the game. But the basic idea is at the end of the game, whoever has the most other squares on the board is going to be the winner of the game. Really simple, really cool concept, but the game actually offers a lot of really cool, nice strategies to it. It's one of those games I like to describe that's really simple to teach, but really hard to master. And then again, it looks like, if you kind of look at the box game, you're kind of like, well, that kind of looks like a really super simple game. But the cool thing about it is the game plays really well. It's your typical abstract game where it's pretty much a mind battle between the players. You're trying to outsmart the other player, trying to work around them, trying to guess what the other player is doing, and try to work towards getting the final victory for the game. So it's a game I actually have a lot of fun with. I've actually always been one of those people who actually really does enjoy abstracts. I grew up on abstracts. Matter of fact, the first board game I was ever introduced to was chess, where my brother would routinely trounce me in chess repeatedly over and over until I got better at it. So that was basically my very first introduction to board games. So even now as an adult, I still enjoy abstracts quite a bit, and I have a lot of fun playing with my oldest son. So this is a game, Mod X. It's a really good game that is an abstract game. It's an enjoyable game. Very super simple to teach. Very super simple to play. You're just basically going to play one of these X counters down there. You're going to try to make any one of these patterns to go ahead and score. And again, the game's going to come to an end after a certain end conditions can be met. Really fun in that little game. Very interesting game. It's a game that I actually enjoy playing over and over again. We'll actually sit down and play a best out of 5. Or if we don't have enough time, we'll play a best out of 3. And it's a game that also plays up to 4, but plays really great even at 2 players. Next up on the list is going to be Santorini. Now, Santorini, again, is another abstract game. It does play up to 4 players, but let's be honest, the game is actually best as a 2-player game. And it's also pretty darn decent as a 3-player game. To play the game as a 4-player game is pretty much a team game, and I think it loses a lot. So I really enjoy this game. It's pretty much as a head-to-head between myself and my oldest son. But Santorini is another game that's an abstract game. It's very, very simple to teach. The moves and the instructions for the game are extremely simple. The way the game is going to play is you're going to control one of these little architects, and your objective is you're trying to build buildings. The first person to get to the top of a 3-story building wins the game. Sounds super simple, and the amount of moves you make in the game are also super simple. On your turn, you can move in any one of the 8 cardinal directions, or if you want, if instead of moving, you can just simply build a building right next to you. Very simple. If there's a building next to you that's a level 1, heck, you can go on top of it. There's a building next to you that's a level 2, you can't go onto it, so what you're going to do is you're going to have to figure out ways to build around to start working your ways all the way up. Again, your eventual objective is to manage to get to the 3rd level of a building. But the trick is to get to the 3rd level of building, you start needing to maneuver around all these buildings because you can only go up 1 level at a time. Adding to the challenge of this is that you can build at any time next to you on any single level. And if you manage to build on a level to cap off a building, that building cannot be climbed up on top of anymore. So this is a really nice, super simple abstract game. There's 2 different moves you can do. Move cardinal direction, or you can build a building. You're trying to outsmart the other players, try to get into the other player's head and try to figure out what actions they're trying to do while they're trying to get up on the higher buildings, while you're trying to distract them, while you're also trying to make sure that you're putting your pawns in a good place to get up on their higher buildings. Now, the very simple rules are pretty darn simple, but the cool thing is that the game does have a built-in expansion, which is going to allow you to start adding player powers in the game. The player powers add a lot of variety and make the game a lot more interesting and add a lot of variety to the game. Again, this is one of those games that's super simple on the surface, but very darn enjoyable and have a heck of a lot of fun. And the cool thing about it is the game plays extremely quickly. You can usually get a game of Santorini in probably about 25 minutes or less, especially with a 2-player game, which makes it one of those great games that you can play, reset the board, play again, set the board and play again, do a best out of 5 or a best out of 3. Again, this is one of those games that's an abstract game. Like I said, my son enjoys abstract games a lot. And I was one of the fortunate, lucky ones who managed to find this game at Target for $20, even with a really cool, nice little base here. It's a 3-dimensional little base. It's superfluous. You don't really need it, but the game is really darn enjoyable on its own. It's got cute little miniatures, and the pieces stack up really darn nice. And if you really want to be super creative, you can even paint up all these pieces and make it look extra fancy. I've never done that because when it comes to painting things, I'm painting for Warhammer 40K and Games Workshop stuff, but this is still a fun little game. And if you look at the miniatures, they actually have pretty darn decent detail in them. They look pretty darn good, and it's just a fun, quirky little game that I have a heck of a lot of fun with. That's Santorini, another abstract game I've been having a heck of a lot of fun with lately with my family. Moving away a little bit from the abstract games and more into the dexterity games, we have Pitchcar. Now, Pitchcar is one of those games that's been around for many, many, many years. It's one of those games that is played tons of times at conventions and other locations because it's a super simple game to teach. It's a dexterity game, and the basic idea is you are going to flick your car, and your objective is to get around the track. The cool thing about this game is the amazing amount of tracks you can build with this game. You can make some absolutely ginormous tracks with some amazing different trick shots where you're trying to get your car across some weird, strange different tracks. My oldest son likes to make some of the most creative, weirdest tracks in the world because I have the jumps expansion. I have the expansion allows you to go up on different levels, so you make a multi-tier tracks where you make spirals going all the way up. And he makes some of the most insane, crazy, challenging tracks that you've ever seen. He actually made this one track where the whole objective was you had to go up on this ramp. At the tip of the ramp, there was a curve with no railing. So you had to flick your car just perfectly to get up. And then you had to flick again to get across a jump that was actually made to go across to another landing area, which was not quite angled perfectly. So he likes to make these crazy, wild, challenging things, but it's a heck of a lot of fun because, again, like I said, the idea is just to flick a simple disc and get across to these tracks. So Pitchcar is one of those games that is really, really fun. Now, unfortunately, Pitchcar is is a game that actually is a little bit more expensive, but it is really, really worth it. It's a really super enjoyable game. The ability to make these really interesting, cool tracks is just really, really enjoyable. And it's a great game for parties. It's a great game for social gatherings. It's a great game for families. The basic game, I think, goes up to 8 or maybe even 10 players. I can't remember. I have to go look at the box because I can't remember right off the top of my head. But I know I played this game at multiple parties. And since I have so many different copies of the game, I can make these really huge tracks. And I can play with more than the 8 or whatever the 10 is allowed in the box. But it is a heck of a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable, especially when you start flicking. Oops. Oh, man, I'm getting rusty. Oh, I'm so rusty, man. It's been about 3 weeks since I played this game. I need to play it again. But anyways, it's one of those cool games where you can just literally get people who aren't even board game players and say, hey, want to grab a couple of beers? Hey, you want to play this really fun, interesting game where you're just going to be flicking a car across the track and making those really quiet, cool, crazy tracks and heck of a lot of fun? Well, that's Pitchcar. It's one of those great games that's just so easy to bring out, so easy to teach, so simple, and such a heck of a lot of fun. You're going to build these crazy, ginormous tracks all across maybe 2, 3, or if you're really, really crazy, 4 really big tables. Make these gigantic tracks where you have ramps going down, ramps going up, you have spirals going up, you have jumps, you have tunnels, you have T-junctions, and you have all these different things, creating these absolutely wild things. There's even a loop-to-loop that you can get, which I don't have, which I need to find a way to track down. And apparently, they actually just announced, for the people who are a little bit more price conscious, that Pitchcar now has a final expansion. Well, I shouldn't say final because it's the current expansion. But there's actually an expansion for Pitchcar out right now that allows you to connect it to Pitchcar Mini. Now, Pitchcar Mini was more of a more lower price version of the game. The boards were smaller and everything, and the tracks were smaller. But you can actually combine Pitchcar Mini with Pitchcar to make these super duper wild tracks. And that's one expansion I'm really looking forward to get. That way I can combine Pitchcar Mini and Pitchcar and 3 tables and make the most crazy, wildest tracks. Or at least watch my son make these crazy, wild tracks while we all try our hardest not to crash repeatedly and fall off the track. Heading back over into the abstract world is going to be Quoridor, a game that's spelled with a Q. Why, I don't know, which made it really, really hard to find, especially if somebody recommends it to you and somebody says, hey, go check out the game Quoridor, and you're going, on your computer, and going, C-O-R-R, nope, not finding it. Well, unfortunately, it's a funny spelled word name for a game, but it's actually a really entertaining little abstract game. And again, a lot like other abstract games, it's very, very simple. There's 2 things you can do on your turn. You can simply advance, or you can build a wall. Now, here's the cool thing about the game. The simple way to win, all you need to do, it's a super simple thing. All you gotta do to win is get to the other side of the board. First person across the other side of the board is the grand winner of the game. Here's the trick with the game though. You don't have to move on your turn. You can build a wall. Now you can build walls offensively, or you can build walls defensively, which is a really fun abstract level of the game. Because you need to look at what the other player is doing and figure out what they're doing and figure out if this is a turn where you want to build a wall or if it's a turn where you want to advance, because the walls are a limited resource. Each player starts with 10 walls only, or you can play the game as a 4-player game where each person, again, is just trying to get to the opposite side of the board. And that means that every single player is only going to start with 5 walls, but again, on your turn, you simply are going to advance. And I shouldn't say advance because you can move in any one of the 4 cardinal directions. No diagonal movements here. It's up, down, left, right, or forward, backwards, left, and right, whatever you want to call it. But you're simply, on your turn, you're simply going to advance, or you're going to place a wall. And again, how do you place walls defensively? Well, you can place walls such as this if you're advancing this way, which means that nobody can block you right there, or at least it's more difficult to block there. Or for example, if somebody tries to play a wall down here, you can put a wall, if you're right about there, you can defensively put a wall there to make sure that they can't block you out. So there's some really cool, interesting strategy you can do with this game. Now the fun thing about this game is it's super simple. It's super light. It's really easy to teach. I mean, you can literally, I just taught you the entire game. You move or you build a wall. That's all you're going to do. Get to the other side and you'll win. But the strategies that come out from this game, and the fact that this game plays quickly, it's a great game for the family. I mean, players can play it from a very young age. As a matter of fact, this is one of the games I started my oldest son on when he was like 5 years old. And I'm sure this is probably what influenced him to be such a big fan of abstract games. This is probably why he started liking abstract games so darn much, because this is one of the first games I taught him. And now that means that I've actually had this copy of this game for about 9 years now, and you see that this game has had a lot of use. It's starting to chip a little bit, but it's a wooden board with wooden pieces, and it's really good components, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. Fast playing, super easy to teach, really enjoyable abstract game. If you enjoy your abstracts, it's one I actually really, really recommend, especially if you're trying to teach family members or younger gamers or bring them into the hobby. Next up, we have Galaxy Trucker. Now, Galaxy Trucker is my oldest son's absolute 100% favorite game. If we're ever going to play a board game and he wants to play a board game, this is the first game he actually suggests. It's one he asks to play all the time, especially now that we managed to get the missions expansion. I'll cover the missions expansion in just a second. But if you're not familiar with Galaxy Trucker, the basic idea of Galaxy Trucker is this game is going to be a timed game. And it's played in 2 phases. The very first time phase is players are going to be racing to build their ship. The trick is, as you're building your ship, is you have to build the ship following certain rules. There are certain connectors that can only connect to certain kind of connectors. A triple can only connect to, or I'm sorry, a double can only connect to a double. A single can only connect to a single. A triple can connect to anything, but you can't have certain things built certain different ways. You can't have laser guns pointing at parts of your ship. You can't have engines pointing in certain different ways, and you can't have crazy things going on. And the trick with the game is after you build your ship, it's a race to build your ship. First person to build their ship is going to get an advantage on the destination track, or maybe a penalty depending on how the cards come out. But that's the cool thing about it. Once everybody's managed to build their ship, the players are going to have to survive open space or various different things such as horrible commandos, I don't know, space dust, abandoned spaceships, hazardous sectors, planets, aliens, all these different things they're going to have to survive. And what's going to happen is as they're playing this game, these different things are going to slowly start doing damage to their ships. So it's a two-pronged game. The basic idea is you need to be good at building a ship quickly with your parts, because all the parts are going to start face down. It's going to start with a big old pile in the center of the table. And basically you're going to reach in the pile, grab a face down piece, hover it over your board, and see if you can put it on a ship. If you can't, you put it back face up. So players are racing to do this, and then once all this is done, players have to survive these random encounters. Now this is one of those games that's very, very interesting, and I hear a heck of a lot of people grouse about and say that this game is all about luck. It's not about luck. There is so much skill in this game. Anybody who is really good at Galaxy Trucker will tell you that there's an immense amount of skill in this game. The skill in this game comes from knowing your odds, knowing statistics, knowing the chances of bad things happening at the various different tracks, and also being efficient at spatial awareness, knowing how to build a ship efficiently, knowing what a good ship is, knowing what a bad ship is, knowing that being in first place is not absolutely mandatory, and also knowing being in last place is not also the worst thing in the world. It's a game about being able to build a ship fast while knowing that you're trying to hedge your bets against certain good things, well, okay, certain bad things happening. And it's a race to build a better ship than your opponents, because you're going to play over 3 different missions. Whoever makes the most amount of money by the 3rd mission is going to be the one who wins the game. The trick is as you're playing the game, the ships are going to start getting bigger and bigger. And if you have the expansion here, you can start playing with some really crazy ships. Star Trek looking ships. Shh, don't say anything. I'm sure there's some copyright rules about it. But anyways, you're going to get some really cool ships, and it's really, really, really awesome. This is a game that's immense amounts of fun. It's a crazy, wacky, wild game, but it's one of those games that's going to reward smart play. Playing the game multiple times, because there is a huge amount of skill to this game. Learning the connections, learning what the connections do, learning how to build a ship smart, learning which pieces are good and which missions, and then we even have the missions, which just is brought this game back into the highlight, at least in my family. The missions cards have just made this game come out so much more lately because we're having so much fun with these missions. So what the missions do, and what these are really, really awesome, it's actually kind of cool. So Galaxy Trucker started as a board game and became an application. Well, the application inspired a new, and I think it's probably going to be the final expansion for the game. I don't know, maybe they're going to come out with another thing, but at this point, I think it would just start hitting the level of bloat, because the game just has a perfect level of craziness, variety, and skill built into it right now. But who knows, a lot of Havada will probably, just knock my socks off and come out with another expansion and surprise me. But what they've done is they took the application and they used it to be inspired to create this newest expansion, which is the missions expansion. And basically what this does is before you are even going to start one of your flights, you're going to pick a mission. And every one of these missions are going to have extra restrictions on how you're going to build your ship, or what you're going to do, or extra crazy chaos that's going to happen into these things. For example, you may have the heavy duty mission, which is going to allow you to add extra heavy plating to your ship. The heavy plating slows your ship down a lot, depending on how big the heavy plating is. But you're going to see on this little list, the more heavy plating you get across the galaxy successfully without being knocked out by space pirates, meteors, lasers, abandoned stations, aliens, non-copyright infringing strange xenomorphs attacking the inside of your ship and devouring your crew. Shh, again, copyright issues. Let's not talk about that again. But you're going to see that if you can survive all these things with more metal plating than anybody else, you're going to get more money than anybody else. But this heavy plating is super heavy, which slows down your ship, which means you're not going to be fast enough. And I forgot to mention one other thing in Galaxy Trucker. If another player laps your ship, guess what? You're out of the race. So these missions start adding crazy different things to the game. For example, you have the directives mission, which allows you to add a whole bunch of different things. You have the bet, where basically you have to face the most chaotic, super crazy different events that are really just going to be just devastating to you if you're not prepared for them, if you're not really good at the game. And this just goes on with a whole bunch of different things. And one of my favorite ones is actually hilarious stories. Hilarious stories allows you to do a really strange setup where you're going to do the super cards, and basically you're just trying to survive and have the best story at the other end of the mission, which basically means your ship blew up the most but made it. So it's kind of a really interesting thing. It actually changes up basically how you're playing the game. So instead of being the standard game where you're trying to build this impenetrable fortress of a spaceship, you're trying to build a ship that's kind of weak, kind of falls apart, but has lots of built-in safeguards to make sure it can keep going. So the missions added a heck of a lot of fun and has made this game come back to the table quite a bit lately. And it's a game that we are still enjoying all these years. I have the original Anniversary Edition, which I bought when it first came out. And this game has seen a lot of play, a lot of replay, and a lot of variety. It's a game that we just so much enjoy in my family. Next up, we have Viae, Roads of Rome. Now, this is a game that I've actually not played with my family because that's not the style of game my family really enjoys. So this is one of those games I've been playing with the overhead camera a lot lately. And we've actually gotten pretty darn good at playing this game with overhead camera. This is a game I'm actually enjoying a lot more. It's been a little bit of a creative experience because what we've had to do is set up a camera that's totally separate where I can place cards in front of where people can look at the cards that they have in their hand. And it's been a little bit of work, but I have to say it's actually worked out really darn good. It's allowed us to enjoy this game and have quite a bit of fun with it. And this is a game I'm actually appreciating the more I'm actually playing this game. I'm having a good, enjoyable amount of fun with it, and I enjoy the replay variety that comes with this game. So basically the idea of Viae is this is a area control game where the basic objective is you're just trying to take over these cities. Whoever takes over the most cities, or I shouldn't say whoever takes over the most cities because it's area control, but the game is going to come to an end when a certain condition comes in, and then whoever has the most cities plus the most influence is going to be the person who wins the game. The cool thing about this game is the amount of deception and the double dealing and the backstabbing and the mind games that come in when you're playing this game. Because in this game, you're trying to gain control of these areas and you're also trying to complete these different little objectives that you've been tasked with. Each player has some personal objectives and plus there's some open objectives. And for one person completes a certain amount of objectives, the game's going to come to an end. And then you're going to add up all your victory points, whoever has the most is going to be the grand winner of the game. But the cool thing about this game is that a lot of the objectives require you to control areas of the board. But there's ways to incentivize other players to help you gain control of those areas. So there's a really strong mind game that goes on when you're playing this game because you're trying to make people come over into areas that you need conquered because your personal requirement required, or your mandate I should say, because that's what they call in the game, your mandate requires a certain section such as Arabia to be conquered. Once Arabia is conquered, you're going to gain the victory points, you're going to bring the game one step closer to being finished. So there's mind games you can play by building these these buildings that give extra resources to people if they have cities controlled in that region. So you're going to incentivize players to come over there and start working into these areas. Plus there's different cards that allow you to move your buildings around. There's backstabbing, double dealing, and different things going on in the game. So this is one of those games that has a lot of table talk and a lot of interaction between some players, which is something that we've started to appreciate a lot more the more we're playing this game. It's an interesting game that forces players to have a lot of direct interaction even though it's just a very simple area control game. So very simple area control games are generally race games where you're racing to take care of the most areas to gain control to gain the victory points. This game has snuck in a little bit of a war game and a little bit of deception, and heck, I can just stop talking about this. Tell you to check out my review of the game, but I can tell you that we're having a lot more fun with this game. This is a game that we're getting a lot more table presence with, and it's a game that once all this social distancing finally ends, I can't wait to actually sit down at a table with 4 other friends and a heck of a lot of fun playing Viae Roads to Rome. Next up, we have King of Tokyo. Now, King of Tokyo, let's just be perfectly blunt. King of Tokyo is really just a glorified version of Yahtzee. And I know it sounds mean to say that, but it really is a glorified version of Yahtzee because all we're simply doing is we're rolling dice and we're looking for matches. But the game makes the game of Yahtzee so much more fun because it's more than just rolling the dice. Because in this game, we are giant monsters trying to take over Tokyo, whether it's by attacking other players or getting special power cards or even our own personal power cards, because there's 2 different ways we're going to win the game of Tokyo, King of Tokyo. You're either going to knock out all the other players and be the last monster standing in the city of Tokyo, or you can be the first person to get 20 victory points, because the cool thing about this game is every single player is going to get their own personal board, and it allows you to track your victory points and your life. When your life goes down to 0, you're knocked out of the game, unless you get a special card that allows you to resurrect. But basically, you are racing to be the first person to get 20 victory points or be the last man standing in this really cool, interesting game. Now, I really have a lot of fun with King of Tokyo. My family has a heck of a lot of fun with it, and even my extended family has a lot of fun with it. When I was playing games over my uncle's house, or my wife's uncle's house, I should say, I still call him uncle, but you know, it's just because that's how our family is. I used to bring this game over to their house all the time, and we would actually play this game with up to 7 players, which I probably wouldn't recommend to just anybody. It probably takes the right group to do that. Just because we have so much fun with the idea of the game of just going out there, rolling dice, getting the claws to attack the other players, the lightning bolts to get extra special powers, or even just getting numbers to match up just to score the victory points. It's a super light-hearted game, but it's a game that is just so darn endearing and so much fun because it's just so simple to teach. Everybody knows how to play Yahtzee. You're going to roll the dice up to 3 times, keep what you want, factor in everything you get at the end, and that's what's going to happen. You're just going to pass the dice on to the next player. The turns are quick, the rounds are super duper quick, and the game actually doesn't take that long. Really, the only super negative I could ever lay against the game is the fact that the game does have player elimination. Because, I mean, if you run out of your very last heart and you are knocked out of the game, it is pretty much game over for you. But the cool thing is that since the turns are so quick, even if you are knocked out of the game, there's a pretty darn good chance that the game is not going to last probably more than another 10 minutes at that point. So it's a super light game. It's a super enjoyable game. Lots of really good head-to-head player interaction with the players. 2 different victory conditions and lots of fun with all these player power cards. These personal player cards that match each specific monster so darn perfectly and are taken from all those giant rubber suit movies that we remember from the 40s, the 50s, all those Godzilla movies, all those Rodan movies, all those Mecha Godzilla movies, all those great movies we remember from our childhoods or way before our childhoods if we want to go to the black and whites. But it's a fun, entertaining version of that stuff brought into a very simple mechanics. Lots of joy, lots of enjoyability. That's King of Tokyo. Next up, we have Codenames Duet. Now, Codenames is a game that's been out for quite a long time now, and the Codenames Duet is a way to play Codenames as a 2-player game, or you can even do this as a teams game, still using Duet rules, but it's a game that I have a lot of fun playing with my wife. Now, my wife is not a board gamer. She doesn't enjoy playing board games. It's just not her thing, but there's a couple board games I can get her to play. And Codenames Duet is definitely one of those games that we have a lot of fun playing. It's one of those games that we will just sit down with each other across from a table. We will even bring this game out to dinner with us while we're waiting for a meal when we go to a nice restaurant. And we'll bring out Codenames Duet and we'll set everything up while we're waiting for our meals to arrive. Because it's a wonderful game. It's a great game for couples. And it's a great game for couples to play together because it's simple to teach, but allows the couples to have some great interactions. It's a game that my wife and I have a heck of a lot of fun playing. Now, the idea of Codenames Duet, if you're not familiar with Codenames, is basically every single player, or at the start of every game, you're going to get this little card right here. And what this card is it's double-sided. Now, what I am trying to do by looking at my side, because I can never look at the other player's side, or in my case, my wife's side, I can only look at my side. But I'm trying to make my wife guess what my green cards are, while my wife is trying to make me guess what her green cards are. The trick is I can't guess any of the black cards. If I guess one black card, or if I make my wife guess one black card, then we both have lost. But we only have so many guesses to do this, and that's going to be marked by these tokens. So as we're playing the game, basically what you need to do is you need to give like a 1-word clue, and then say how many cards and the 5x5 grid match your clue. And then what happens is your partner, without looking at your side of the card, needs to guess which cards they think it is. And they're simply going to point at a card and say, and you're going to say yes or no if it matches your clue. If it matches your clue, or if it happens to be just a lucky one, happens to be one of your green cards, you'll put a green token or a green reminder out here to signify that they got it right. If they're incorrect, you're going to put out one of these little tokens right here to signify that the guessing is over and that card was not part of your clue and it's not part of one of the green cards. Or if it happens to be a black card, you're simply going to put the black spy card out there to signify both of you lost, so you must start another game. It's a really super simple, easy game to teach. It's basically a clue game, but it's really nice for couples because you're going to get into each other's, I hate to say it, but you're going to get into each other's brains. And you're also going to converse with each other because you're going to try to, well, the best way to say it is the more better you know your partner, the better you can play a game like this because you're going to have past events, you're going to have movies you've seen together, you're going to have things you've experienced together, and you can use all those things to give one simple 1-word clue and how many words match that clue. For example, you can say something very simple like birthday, and oh, that's probably going to be a terrible one, but hey, let's go for it anyways. You can say something simple as birthday 2, and then maybe that's a good idea, or maybe it is one. Maybe you can point at cake and butter because it takes butter to make cake or something like that. but that's just how simple and easy the game is. It's a wonderful, super easy game to teach, but it's a game that has extensive amounts of replayability because there are so many cards that come with the game. All these cards are double-sided, and these are the amount of clue cards that come in this game. There's this huge stack of these clue cards. I don't think that my wife and I, even though we play this game dozens and dozens of times, I don't think we've even seen all these clue cards yet, just because there are so many of them in the game. It's a game we have fun with. It's a game, like I say, we will actually bring out with us when we're just having a date night, just us together, going to a very nice Italian restaurant, sitting down together and waiting for a wonderful meal to come out. We'll just spend the 20 or 30 minutes while we're waiting for a meal to come out, just sitting down, playing this game, having a heck of a lot of fun, and be happy the entire time we're doing it. That's Codenames Duet. Next up, we have Castle Dukes. Now, Castle Dukes is an interesting game. It's kind of a combination of a resource management game built in a little bit with a dexterity game, because the basic idea of the game is everybody on their turn, they're going to get 5 gold. They can use this 5 gold to buy buildings, they can use this 5 gold to buy defenses, or they can use this 5 gold to do other different things. But the basic idea is you're trying to build up your castle, because every couple of turns a dragon is going to come attack every one of your castles and possibly do a lot of damage. And as they're doing damage to your castle, your buildings might start falling down, because there's a little bit of a dexterity component to the game, because as the game plays, you are going to buy these pillars, and these pillars are going to be what you're going to use to build up your castle. I should face this properly just to make it nice and official. But you need to put out these pillars, and the trick is these pillars cost money, and it's a little bit of a race game. So you don't want to put out a lot of pillars and build a perfect castle, because the trick is if you're a little bit too perfect with your castle, somebody's going to build their castle a lot quicker than you, and you gain victory points in this game by having your castle at a certain height at the end of the game, by having certain defenses, and by having certain rooms built into your castle and different things. But the trick is, as you notice, every single one of these layers requires pillars to be built on certain locations that have these symbols. So there's a little bit of a dexterity element to the game, and a little bit of a push your luck element as you're trying to make your castle stable enough, but you're not wasting too much time building up the castle just perfectly, because again, there's only so many rounds of the game, and there's only so much time you have, and there's only so many resources you have, and sometimes it's worth more money just to have your castle built up high and hope it's good enough, because again, like I said, eventually the dragon's going to come visiting, and sometimes when the dragon visits, bad things happen to your castle. So it's a cool little bit of a twist of a game with a little bit of resource management, because you only have so many resources on your turn, and you're going to use these resources to buy rooms, which are worth victory points, and these rooms are going to do different things, such as give you more defenses. They're going to incite other people to visit your castle through these different cards, such as the princess or the king or the knights, which are going to add to your defense, and your defense is going to be used to keep the dragon at bay. And it's a very light, simple little game, but it adds a lot of little details to it that make it kind of entertaining. Now, this isn't a game that I was going to say is going to ever enter my top 51 games of all time, but this is definitely a game that I have a lot of fun playing with my son. I enjoy the spatial aspects of the game of trying to build your castle up. I enjoy the dexterity components, and I see this castle's already wobbling. Oh, I didn't do a good job there at all. But I enjoy the fact that you're basically only having so many turns, and you're basically trying to build a better castle than your opponent, while making a castle that's attractive to the king, the princess, and the knights, because if they come visit your castle, they're going to give you extra victory points of the game and give you extra defenses for when the dragon comes and rampages. So it's a nice little, light little game, but it's a fun little game that does play up to 4 players, and that they managed to combine 2 different things in an interesting way to create a game that plays pretty quickly. This game plays in about 60 minutes. It's super easy to teach. It's very simple to play. Yeah, it's pretty darn random. And again, it is a dexterity game. So if you have a little bit of shakes because you drank too many cups of coffee, it's probably not the game you want to play, because you're going to be doing this one and your whole castle is going to fall. And when your castle falls, hey, it's more stable than I thought it was. When your castle falls, you're going to suffer a penalty, and you're going to lose victory points, and then you got to start building your castle all the way back up. So it's a very light little game, but it's light in a way that makes it nice and fun and nice and entertaining. It's a great family game, especially when you want to play a game with the younger kids. You can play this game pretty much probably with 7, 8, or 9-year-olds and all the way up, and still have a heck of a lot of fun, and it's even pretty darn enjoyable for adults to play. That's Castle Dukes. And finally, we have Planet Apocalypse, which should be going up on my channel sometime this week with a full review, a full tutorial, and a full playthrough of the game. But Planet Apocalypse is a cooperative tower defense game where the players are trying to fight back the hordes of demons that managed to that have managed to break through from the portals of hell onto our planet and are trying to lay waste to the entire planet Earth. Basically, it's Doom, but Doom on Earth. So if you're familiar with the classic PC game where Doom is attacking Mars, well, it looks like Doom has managed to make it to Earth. And our heroes are the only thing holding back these infinite waves of advancing monsters that are trying to come upon our cities, lay waste to our planet, and destroy our wonderful, wonderful planet. So this is a game from Sandy Petersen Games, and this is a game much like Sandy Petersen's a lot of his games, and I don't want to get into this too much because I do have a review going up this week, but it's one of those games from Sandy Petersen that's really super easy to teach. It's very simple, has a very simple turn structure, but it's one of those games that has lots of strategy, lots of replay, and lots of variety just because of the way the game goes. And even that's just with the basic box. Once you start adding lots of expansions in, you see a ton of variety and a ton of replay and so many different ways to play this game. Now, the basic idea of this game is at the start of every single turn, the players are going to get to do some actions. These actions allow them to move around the board. These actions allow them to shoot and possibly take out some of these bad guys. These actions allow them to even start spending experience to start gaining gifts, and these gifts are going to give them different powers. So this is the basic way the game is going to work, and the basic way that the play is going to have a lot of variety every single time you play the game. Because there's different heroes and different gifts, and not all the same gifts are going to come out every single time. And you're going to pay experience to gain these gifts, and these gifts are going to give you special different powers. On top of that, all of our heroes have their own special powers themselves that match their heroes, and every one of our heroes also has a special weakness that is always mandatory and is always in play. So you need to factor in your team of survivors based on their strengths, based on their weaknesses, based on these infinite portal of hell that's opened up on Earth, creating these infinite amount of creatures that are going to be coming down this track, tower defense style, in an effort to destroy our city. Now, like I said, it's a very simple game because the players are going to take their turn. After their turn is over, the next thing that's going to happen is the bad guys are just going to simply advance along the board, and different things are going to happen. But as we're going, tracks are going to start ramping up. As these tracks ramp up, we're going to start rolling more dice, which is going to judge more monsters coming on the board. So they're going to come more powerful waves, more stronger waves. But eventually what's going to happen is the big bad guy is eventually going to advance along the board because you've been waiting too long to take him out. And as he advances on the board, you're going to start seeing much more powerful bad guys come on the board who take multiple hits to kill. And if at any time any of these bad guys manages to make it off the board, that means the Doom track is going to go up. If the Doom track ever gets to a level 13, the players have lost. It doesn't matter how many hit points they left, how many gifts they have, whatever tricks they have up their sleeve. If the Doom counter ever gets to 13, the hero is going to lose. Also, if the big bad guy ever makes it to the start area, they bring total ruin and destruction to, well, the map at least, but brings ruin and destruction to the entire planet, and our heroes have lost. So basically, it's a race for our heroes to level up by taking out the a little bit weaker bad guys while gaining experience, while gaining all these gifts, while the game is slowly ramping up in an effort to finally go into the bad guy special area, enter the hell time where the heroes are going to try to take out the bad guy, try to bring him down and defeat him by taking out all his hit points, and all these different bad guys, these final different bad guys, these lords, all play really, really differently. They'll have different powers, special weaknesses, special abilities, adding a lot of variety to the game. And I didn't even factor in the fact that there's even different things as you're playing the game. There's different legions that are going to be in this game. There's different maps, and actually the base game even comes with 2 separate maps. The second map just slightly ramps up the difficulty. And as you start adding in more expansions, every single expansion will start ramping up the difficulty even more and more and more. There's a T-junction expansion, which allows the bad guys to come in from 3 different directions. There's a map that is kind of like a W shape where they're going to come in from 2 different directions. You're trying to defend like almost like a star base or something like that. But there's so much variety built in this game and so much replay, it adds a lot of fun. And again, look for this game to pop up on the channel this week with a full review of Planet Apocalypse. So that's enough about games I've been playing lately. Let's go ahead and look at the Kickstarter front. Over on the Kickstarter front, there's a couple of Kickstarters that have my attention right now, and the first one I want to talk about is the Terraforming Mars expansion, which is the Terraforming Mars big box, which comes with the 3D tiles. Now, Terraforming Mars is a game that I have a lot of fun with. As a game I really enjoy a heck of a lot, but the problem I've always had with Terraforming Mars is when it comes to table presence, it does not have a good table presence. It actually looks like a low production quality game, and I don't want to be mean to the game, but the boards are fairly thin. The cards, the art on the cards doesn't look that great, but the gameplay itself is absolutely amazing. Terraforming Mars is a wonderful game, and what this does is they brought out an expansion on Kickstarter, and it's already hit 1.5 million people, or $1.5 million, and over 12,000 people back in the project. So you don't need me recommending the project to you, but the reason why I am looking into this is because it's going to increase the table presence for Terraforming Mars quite a bit. And it's also going to be bringing out a big box, which allows you to store everything for the game in one single box. Because if you're not familiar with the game has a lot of maps for different planets that you can terraform. There's a lot of expansions which add different cards, different corporations, different rules of the game, and make the game much more, I don't want to say, well, yeah, it does make the game much more challenging. It makes the game much more, it increases the difficulty and makes the game more interactive to play. Well, I don't want to say difficulty because it sounds like I'm saying the game is harder to play. It adds a lot more variety to the game. There are a lot of expansions that make your decision trees much more meaningful, especially with the planets and everything like that. So they're adding a lot of good content to the game, but if you have the game, there's a lot of expansions for it. So what this does is it adds a big box which adds the way to store everything, but the thing that is really cool about this is it adds 3D tiles to the game. And the thing is these 3D tiles look like they are going to look absolutely amazing and fix one of the biggest problems I have with Terraforming Mars, which is the game just doesn't look that great on the table. It's one of those games that if you see people playing, you kind of go, yeah, it looks kind of cool, okay, and walk on. It's not one of those games that's going to grab your attention, but this is really going to be attention grabbers. And not only that, it's going to be cool to play with because these 3D tiles are going to make the game much more visibly appealing, but make the game easier to play visibly because you're going to be able to see at a very quick, easy glance what the board looks like. You're going to see the terrain tiles terraform, and it's going to look really darn cool. Now, I'm not saying the game is hard to figure out as is because the forest tiles look like forest, the water tiles look like water, the city tiles look like water, but this is just going to make it look so much better at a glance. I backed the last Kickstarter where they actually brought out the more three-dimensional boards that have the little recesses for all your components, which was something I thought the game needed so darn badly. One of the things I did not like about Terraforming Mars is if somebody came and just bumped a table, you pretty much were in trouble because all the components would go all over the place and it'd be so hard to track all your components, where the cubes need to go. It was such a pain in the neck. It's probably why I've never reviewed Terraforming Mars, because I know I would go on a tirade about the component quality and somebody would say I'm an idiot and it would just go from there. But the component quality was just something that was such a huge detractor for me on such a marvelous, amazing game. So not only do we have these cool 3D components coming out, we have this really nice big box which is going to store our components. We also have these amazing boards which allows us to lock on our components so they're not going to fly out everywhere, which basically means that eventually I'm going to do a full review for Terraforming Mars and show you just how great that game truly is. Next up on Kickstarter, the other game that really has my attention and the one I am really looking forward to is going to be Dinosaur 1944. Now, this is a game from Peterson Games, and it is also, on the surface, looks like it's going to be a tower defense style game, but it looks like it's actually changed a lot from what Planet Apocalypse has done. What Dinosaur 1944 does that Apocalypse or Planet Apocalypse doesn't do is what really has me super interested in this game. Okay, so let's just talk about what this game is itself. It's a game where the players are army heroes. It's 1944, you're on an island and the dinosaurs are attacking. You need to protect your base camp and survive a certain amount of waves. If you survive a certain amount of waves, hey, everything's wonderful, it's a cooperative game, everything's awesome. If you don't survive a certain amount of waves, then hey, you're gonna lose. What this game does that's so different from Planet Apocalypse is there's actually an expansion available for the game, which makes this game play from 2 to 8 players in teams where every team is up to 4 players. One team is going to control the dinosaurs, one team is going to control the heroes, and you're basically going to go head to head after each other. And the cool thing about the game is the game has modular tiles. Now, Planet Apocalypse, again, I don't want to talk too much about both these games because I do have a review for Planet Apocalypse come out here, and I don't want to do too many of the spoilers here. But Planet Apocalypse has set maps. You're going to buy a map and you're going to play that map the same way every single time. The variety in Planet Apocalypse is going to come from the heroes, the gifts, and the lords you're going to have, and the legions that's going to come out. That's going to be all your variety, but the map's going to look the same every single time you play the game. If you want more map variety, you need to buy more expansions. What Dinosaur 1944 has is it's a modular board, and every time you're going to set the board, it's going to say, you need to have this basic setup, but during this basic setup, there's certain tiles that you can pick. You can pick trap tiles, you can pick defensive tiles, you can pick a lava flow tile. And as the dinosaurs are going to start marching down the board, you can influence which direction they're going because they have multiple tracks they can go down, which is already different. So you have this cooperative game that plays a little bit lighter than Planet Apocalypse. The theme is a heck of a lot more family friendly. I mean, which kid doesn't like playing with dinosaurs? And you don't have to worry about any images that might be offensive or might be bothersome to some people because it's dinosaurs and army men. I mean, we remember playing with those when we were kids. We had dinosaurs and we had army men, and we probably had our G.I. Joes, and we probably all made them fight as kids. Don't laugh at me. We all did that as kids. You know you did it, and we all had fun doing it. So they made the game lighter visually. The gameplay is a little bit lighter, and it's one of those games that you can get to the table with a more family-friendly presence. But the thing that really that's hooks into me, and the thing that made me really decide that this is a game I want to back, is the ability to play head-to-head with other players. It sounds almost like they take a rough idea from Memoir 44 with the Overlords expansion, where you're going to have the players playing, controlling their one side, versus the other player controlling the other side, and you're basically going to go head-to-head, trying to defend, trying to go after the other player's camp, and if you take out the other team's camp, you're going to win. So you have dinosaur heroes, which are just basically gigantic dinosaurs with a lot of hit points. And you have the army heroes, who are going to have stuff such as tanks, they're going to have jeeps, they're going to have mortars and have all these things. And basically you're just going to go head to head and smash against each other until you find out who the winner is going to be. It seems like it's a lighter game. Yeah, I admit it looks lighter, but it looks like a game that I can play with friends. It looks a little more beer and pretzel. It looks a lot more fun in that aspect. It looks like a game where my friends can come over. We're going to have a couple of beers, or in my case, I drink whiskey. But we're going to sit down, we're going to have a little bit of fun, have a little bit of a lighter experience. It's going to be a little bit more of a beer and pretzels experience, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And not only that, adding into the awesomeness of all this is the fact that this is a theme that I can play with my younger son. I probably don't want to play Planet Apocalypse with my younger son, but Dinosaur 1944 is definitely a game I would play with my younger son. So that's enough of the stuff on the Kickstarter front. There's a couple other Kickstarters I've been looking at, but most of them are kind of like, they don't look like they really have their hooks in me right now. There's not a lot of Kickstarters right now that really have my attention, but those are definitely the two that really have my attention. Just want to go ahead and close out the video now because this has been running a little bit long, but I want to close out the video with the next poll. And the next poll is, what game do you want to see reviewed next on the channel? So I have managed to get a hold of the 10-year anniversary for A Touch of Evil. Now, A Touch of Evil is a game that's been out for, obviously, actually it's been out for, I think, 12 years. I think the 10-year anniversary was 2 years late. Don't quote me on it. I think the game's been out since 2008. But I do have a copy of the 10-year anniversary of A Touch of Evil, and I also have Dawn of the Zeds. Now, both these games are cooperative games, and cooperative games are something I want to bring probably a lot more to the channel, just due to what's going on in our world right now. I think it's a good thing to enjoy with our friends and our family is cooperative games. As we're doing a little bit more of the social distancing, cooperative games are really, really great from that aspect. You can play cooperative games on Skype, you can play cooperative games with your family, or you can just play cooperative games solo, and that's what's so wonderful about all these cooperative games. So I am probably going to do a couple more cooperative games on the channel, but which one do you want next? Do you want A Touch of Evil 10-year anniversary, or do you want Dawn of the Zeds? Now, Dawn of the Zeds is a little bit of a tower defense game where you're trying to control your city, but it definitely has a very strong zombie influence, such as the TV show with Rick Hunter and all those trying to survive. It has the same idea where you're trying to protect a city where all these zombies are coming in on 3 different tracks, and you're trying to protect citizens, try to bring them into the city, and it's got multiple difficulty levels, multiple different ways to play the game, and the game plays really well, and it's a really enjoyable game. But you also have A Touch of Evil, which is a very much a beer and pretzels, dice chucking, Ameritrash, 100% game where you're throwing dice, you're waiting for the cards to flip up, they're telling this grand story, and it's basically like playing an RPG with a drunk DM. But who cares, you're still having a heck of a lot of fun with the game. That's being a little bit chaotic, a little random, but every time you play, you're going to have one heck of a story to remember. So the poll is, Dawn of the Zeds or A Touch of Evil 10-year anniversary, which game do you want to see next on the channel? We're going to go ahead and bring this video to a close here. This has been the EYAK episode number 7. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll be sure to answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoyed this video, series, click that like button and click that subscribe button. Don't forget, your subscriptions matter for this channel. I don't have sponsors. I don't have advertisements I'm throwing up. I'm not inundating you on a daily basis with requests to support me on Patreon, with sponsors or anything like that. So the good news is that means I can give you my honest opinion without sponsors. The bad news, that means that this does mean that this whole entire channel comes out of my pocket. You can help me with my expenses. Subscribe to the channel, like these videos, share these videos, let other people know about the channel, because more subscriptions can help me cover some of my costs, and I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching.